going to show you how to do a valve adjustment on a VN800 or a Kawasaki Vulcan 800 motorcycle engine. This is going to apply to any year from 95 even up to 07, anything with an 800cc Vulcan motor in it. You want to do this every 6,000 miles, otherwise you'll end up with a shelled engine like I have over there. I bought this bike with a bad engine and it dropped a valve because they did not do a valve adjustment every 6,000 miles. That cylinder head is melted. It's toast. So that's why you want to do a valve adjustment job every 6,000 miles. So let's go ahead and show you what you're going to need to do this job. First of all, you're going to want to download a couple PDF files. I've got links in the video description below. That'll give you first the service manual for this engine. That'll pretty much tell you how to fix everything. And it'll also give you a write-up done by some of the guys over on the forum. One of the more important things you need is this table that gives you proper valve shim sizing, so you don't have to do the math in your head. So go ahead and download those. As far as hardware goes, you're going to want a big screwdriver. You're going to want a magnet. I'm just using a Neo mag and a pair of forceps there. You're going to want a good digital caliper. I'll post a link right now to a good series of videos I did on digital calipers. You can actually get a really good digital caliper like this one from iGaging for under $20. It does inches, metric, fractions, nice large display, really good digital caliper for under 20 bucks. You're going to want one of those. That's the one I use out in the shop. I use a more fancy one at my desk. But check out that link for those videos. You're going to want a feeler gauge. Any standard hardware store or auto parts store feeler gauge will work. But I'll go ahead and put a link down in the description. So you'll find a link to that down in the description, a link to that down in the description. And then flashlight can be helpful also. But the last thing you're going to need is shims. You can actually get a really nice shim kit, and I'll put a link in the video description to a shim kit with all the shims you'll ever need to adjust your valve clearance from here on in. So let's get to it. First thing you need to do is go ahead and unscrew your timing port cover. Just unscrew that screw there. Cover comes off. This gives you access to your crank bolt as well as the marks on your flywheel for setting it to top dead center. Go ahead and take a 17mm socket wrench, and you're going to just put it on the crank bolt, and you're going to rotate it counterclockwise until you see an F on your flywheel. And kind of hard to see in the camera there, but right down there at the bottom of the frame through the hole you see an F, and there's actually two lines. What you're going to do is once you get past the first line, start looking up here at your cam sprocket. There's a line on your cam sprocket and it needs to line up with the top of the cylinder head. When that line lines up perfectly, you're good to go. If you don't see the line on your sprocket there, you need to go ahead and keep turning counterclockwise until you actually see the line there. And that line is actually more important than the marks down there. Those marks just get you in the general vicinity. This mark here actually is the cam. The cam actually works the rocker arm. So when that's set, even with the cylinder head, you know you're at top dead center there. So now that we've got it at top dead center, we'll go ahead and check the valve clearance. The process is going to be the same for the rear jug. All you're going to do is keep rotating counterclockwise until you see an R in the two marks, and you're going to do the same thing with the cam sprocket on the other side. Set up a tripod here. Now this motor, I got it used. It's only got 576 miles on it. So 600 miles is the first service interval for this motor, and it's probably actually one of the more important because you got everything settling, all the little machining burrs are going away, and you're going to probably have more adjustments in the beginning of the life cycle of the engine than you are towards the end. But it is still important, no matter how many miles. Check it every 6,000 miles. Alright, so we'll go ahead and grab our feeler gauge here. You're going to want to get 4 feelers out. You're going to want the 0.1 millimeters, the 0.15 millimeters. It's hard to read on the camera there, but I got 0.1, 0.15, you got 0.25, and I got 0.30. Okay, these two are for the exhaust side, these two are for the intake side. So we'll go ahead and start with our intake. Intake is always going to be closest to the carb, or where the fuel gets sucked into the motor. So that'll be there, and then your exhaust will always be closest to your 2 exhaust ports. Alright, so let's start with our 0.1 millimeter feeler gauge there. And that'll be this one here. And all you're going to do is stick it in between the rocker arm face and the valve shim. You're looking for it to just slide right in there nice and easy. You don't want any resistance at all on the lower end of the spectrum, because that lower end is where you start to get into the danger zone. 0.1 being the lowest acceptable clearance. If it becomes anything less than that, you get to the point where you might damage the engine. So as that distance gets less and less, the rockers are going to just start riding on the valves themselves, and you're going to end up with no clearance. The valve will end up not closing all the way. The whole thing will start to heat up, and you'll end up with a melted engine like the one I have over there on the floor. So you want the lower end of the spectrum, in this case 0.1 millimeters, to just slide in there nice and easy. You want that one to be fairly smooth and loose. Now, to verify that it's not over the clearance, we're going to go ahead and go up to the 0.15. And that one should not go in. If it does, it should be very, very hard to get in. So it's not going in. So that means we're somewhere in between 0.1 and 0.15, and we're good. It's probably in the 0.13 range, which is kind of ideal. So now we'll come over here to our exhaust side, and we'll start with our 0.25 millimeter one. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to stick it in between the rocker arm face and the valve shim. And it's not really going in there. It went in, but it's really tight. So that's not good. So that means it's just barely, that one's a little bit easier. It's just barely in compliance. Actually, there's enough drag on there that I would not call it acceptable. So we're going to want to go ahead and change that shim out. So I'm going to grab my magnet. And what you're going to do is you're just going to slide the rocker arms forward. And they just slide out of the way, grab your magnet, and just pull out the shim like that. Now if you're lucky, you might have numbers on there, but even still you're going to want your digital caliper to accurately decide what your shim needs to be. So we got a 3.5. I think that means it's a 2.35 millimeter. So to verify, we'll go ahead and pull out our digital caliper. Always want to make sure you zero out. I got a great video on properly using a digital caliper on my other YouTube channel. I'll go ahead and put a link to that for you guys. We're just going to take it, bring it up here to where the jaws meet, and we're at 2.35 millimeters. So what we're going to do is come over here to our handy little table. I got it printed out here. So turn it over to the exhaust side, and we have the present shim is a 2.35, marked as 3.5 right there, down that row. And the valve clearance measurement, let's see here. Valve clearance measurement was, we'll call it 0.20 to 0.25, so it wasn't wasn't 0.25, it was a little bit tight, so we're gonna come up here to 0.19. We're gonna come down from our 3.5 to that one, so we want a 2.25. So it's basically just dropping it by 0.1 millimeters. So my valve Shim Kit has not arrived yet. I've got one valve, one shim here. I got this one that I pulled out of the other motor. Let's see what it measures. .31. So if I use that one, it'll give me 0.04, and that's the smallest one I have. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that one in there. Since it was calling for a 2.25, it'll still be a little bit strong, but just for the purposes of this video, I'll show you how to do it there. Just going to stick it in our magnet, slide the rocker arms over. This engine only has 576 miles on it, so it's a little bit tight. There we go. So that in, slide it over. Now we'll see what we got there. Go ahead and take our 0.25. Stick it in there. That's a little bit better. It's actually feeling a lot like the back one now. Actually, it's better than the back one now. I'd like to have a little bit more room in there because it's pretty close to the lower end of our acceptable measurement. But that's the idea right there, guys. You want to be up above that 0.25 on this side, and you want to be up above that 0.1 on this side. You want to be somewhere right in between. You don't want to be fighting that lower end of the spectrum. So I would do the same thing on the back side, and then I would turn the crank over and do the rear jug. I'm going to go ahead and redo the valve measurement when I get probably up to 1,000 miles, just to make sure everything's settled and the engine's broken in right. And I'll do a video in frame at that point. Enjoy. Make sure you click that like button and use my links in the description below.